What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Week 8 edition of Bets and Ball Games with Edwards and Greeson. Before we get to Jay, let's tell you about our good friends at BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything sports betting, every stat, matchup breakdown, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during games. With the largest catalog of odds on everything from football, MLB playoffs, NHL, NBA to political props. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering, BetOnline. The game starts here. All right, we are recording a little later in the day on Thursday than normal, a few minutes after 3 Eastern, and Jay is on vacation in St. Simons. GA, what's going on, man?
Not much, buddy. Hope you're good. It's been a wonderful fall break week for the entire Greason clan, both immediate and extended. But no, it took me a little by surprise when you said this is week 8.
Yeah.
I mean, dear Lord, you blink your eyes and this puppy's gone.
It flies by every single year. All right, we're going to start off with the good, bad, and ugly from last weekend. And I'll start with the good, and it was Vandy, of course. And I was on it. Were you on it? I think
Yes.
you were. Yeah, we were both on it. I got a little taste of plus 405 money line, and our guy Diego Pavia was stellar once again, although he did throw his first interception of the year. But 15 of 18 to 143 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 53 rushing yards. And for the season now, he is 69.1 completion percentage, 1,116 passing yards, 10-1 TDI and T ratio, 388 rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns. And he has Vandy at 4-2, and they are enormous favorites against Ball State, and they host maybe still top ranked Texas next week. All right, Jay, what you got for your good last week?
Amazingly, Auburn didn't turn the ball over.
Yeah, they didn't play.
Oh, that's right. Oh, crap. Well, I guess that doesn't count then. I'm going to go with the magic in the air when the sun goes down in Red Stick, Louisiana, because that place is just different. I mean, it happens so much and so often now that whether it was just assumed to begin with or now it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, night games at LSU, you don't expect to come out of there with a W, period. And Ole Miss didn't. So, and I think there's a bigger conversation for us to have about Ole Miss after we get done with the good, bad, and ugly.
Okay. Yes. I look forward to that. All right. My bad is going to be the Tennessee Volunteers offense that looked like an absolute juggernaut back in September, but they got bageled on the road at Arkansas in the first half, and they got bageled at home to Florida's defense, which is 5 years running been awful. I mean, I'm guessing here, but I'm speculating, and I'm going to do it pretty confidently, that from 82-ish to 2019, I would just about guarantee that other than the year McElwain got fired, that I would just about guarantee that Florida was probably in the top 40 defenses in the country pretty much every year. I mean, other than the McElwain year, there might be maybe one exception. And Florida's just been abysmal defensively going on 5 years now, starting with the COVID 2020 year when we should have won the Natty if we would have had any semblance of a defense. But anyway, Tennessee couldn't score on that bad defense last week, at least not in the first half. Got 17 in regulation and got 14 at Arkansas total for the game. And those are not elite defenses in this conference. And I know Alabama's having its struggles defensively, and we'll obviously talk a lot more about that game in a little bit. But the Vols' bad offense that we've seen the last 2 times out might be just what the doctor ordered to get Alabama's defense right.
Potentially, and I know we'll get to that a little later in the pod. But my bad has to be everything involved with the Oklahoma Sooners offense right now. And I know they're without a couple of their
Five.
top wide receivers.
They're
They
five
are
best ones.
they have been beat up across the offensive line. They've made a quarterback change, and all of those things happen. But you put 3 points on the board early in the Red River rivalry, and you then get bageled for the rest of the game. Look, Texas is number one for a reason. I get it. But that's a rivalry game in a 50-50 environment. The 34-3 is bad. And you're now making the transition into the SEC, and everything that looks everything that's as rosy looking for Texas is as perplexing as it is for Oklahoma right now.
Yeah. All right. My ugly is going to be Billy Bob's Mona Lisa of a masterpiece in incompetence with 4 first half red zone trips, netting 3 combined points. Okay. So the Gators had a 11 play, 72-yard drive that ate up more than 6 minutes of clock and got nothing because on 4th and 1 with a 6'4", 240-pound quarterback in DJ Lagway, it was his turn. It was his series. He decides not to get under center and run a quarterback sneak. Instead, he goes in shotgun, and our star receiver, Eugene Wilson, who had been out for 3 games, had not gotten his first touch yet. He's going to get his first touch in a month on a jet sweep on 4th and 1, and that got stuffed. So then the next drive, we go 7 plays and 79-yard drive, and Montrell Johnson, if I'm remembering correctly, he had a 16-yard run, an 8-yard run, and a 21-yard run. And on the 21-yard run, I thought he was going to put one of Tennessee's safeties in the hospital. He certainly ran over him and hurt his pride very, very much. And so he gets us to the 1 inch line. And just on principalities, you got to give it to Montrell because he deserves the touchdown after getting us down there. And my buddy Wells, whose house I'm at right now, he said, because I go, watch, we're going to get nothing. We're going to get nothing on this drive or field goal max. And he, Wells said, you give it to Johnson 4 times. Anything else is, unethical. And the first play on 1st and goal from the 1 inch line, he didn't want a QB sneak with DJ Lagway, the 240 quarterback, under center, but he puts Graham Mertz under center, the sneak, fumble. And I'm not dogging on Mertz, but it's the play call. And then the real doozy was we get an interception, return it to the 22, get a late hit or unsportsmanlike on Tennessee. It was half the distance to the 11. The Gators take over the Vols 11 with 1:08 left. Get a 10-second runoff, and the field goal doesn't count. And so, Billy Bob, what a disgrace. That's my ugly.
It is certainly an ugly. And I'll get to my ugly, but I do have this question for you about your ugly.
Uh-huh.
As painful as Saturday was, and I thought about you watching that game because Tennessee didn't win that game. Florida lost it. And
in the first half, yeah.
But did you lose the battle but win the war? Because if Billy Bob goes to Knoxville, wins that game, and they finish an easier second half of the schedule, and I know Florida's schedule's been tough all year, but you springboard that and they find a way to go 7-5, you may be left with a whole nother wasted year of the Billy Napier experience. I mean,
yeah, no, I hear you, and that's a very valid point because look, the games at home to Ole Miss and LSU don't look nearly as tough as they were looking back in August, and the trip to FSU looks like a guaranteed W. So, no, it's a very good point, and yeah, I don't like losing to my 4-decade bitch.
I understand, My
Yeah.
bad, my bad, and we'll go quickly because golly, the month of October has been a smorgasbord of SEC topics, and I greatly appreciate the good people at Southeastern 16 and BetOnline uh, giving us this platform. But my bad is the Alabama secondary, man. I mean, Alabama's still loaded with dudes, and I've heard you, and I trust your opinion. So I'm more open to Kalen DeBoer being good at this. But Alabama's been in. They lose to Vandy because Diego Pavia was lit them up. They almost gave away an epic rally to Georgia and Carson Beck because that secondary became a sieve. And South Carolina may have the worst quarterback scenario in the SEC that's not Auburn. And they complete 75% of their passes for almost 250 and 2 scores in a game that South Carolina let off the hook. I mean, that secondary, whoo-wee.
Yeah. No, I know. And Sellers, I think he's a good player. He's got to quit fumbling the ball or just quit turning the ball over.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got fumbleitis, and but he's a playmaker. I think he'll be okay if he'll quit turning
And
the
you
ball
talk
over.
about that place because and we got too much to talk about this week. We may have to pencil in next week talking about some serious hot seats but South Carolina's got some talent on that football team to be giving away the games they've gift wrapped.
Yeah, and we'll get to them with both teams. Both coaches need a win this week out in Norman. All right, so let's start with Auburn at Missouri because it is a noon Eastern kick on ESPN, and our good friends at BetOnline currently have Missouri listed as a 4-point favorite with a minus 115 price and a total of 50. And Auburn is plus 156 on the money line. And for first half bets, Mizzou is minus 3 with a total of 24.5. Before I give Jay the floor, I was going to throw out a few stats. Mizzou, 19 games as a home favorite under Drinkwitz, 6-12-1 against the spread. At home this year, Mizzou 4-0 straight up, 2-2 ATS. Missouri is tied with Vandy for the SEC lead in fewest lost turnovers this year with 2. And Mizzou is fourth in the SEC in turnover margin plus 5. Auburn is 2-2 against the spread as a road underdog on Hugh Freeze's watch, but they are only 10-15-1 ATS and 26 road dog spots since 2014. And Auburn is last in the SEC and tied for last in the country with Southern Miss, Temple, and UAB in turnover margin minus 11. All right, what are you thinking on this one, Jay?
I'm big on the Tigers.
Oh, well, you got to be more specific.
I actually think this is a great spot for Auburn. I think Missouri, we overvalued Missouri. You and I did. The country did. The defensive holes we glossed over. Brady Cook's not as good as we thought he was, or he hasn't played as well as we thought he would. The wide receiver, the lack of a go-to running game, and the injuries in that room have hurt the offense. This is a team that got lucky that honestly Vandy should have beat them. Now that's not as big an indictment as it has been for the last 50 years, but still. And so you mentioned the key word here. But I think that is something that regresses to the middle more times than not. And that's not only turnovers lost, but turnover margin. I mean, Auburn's 4-2 or 5-1. If they're just bad, not nationally last in turnovers.
Right.
But the other part that really, as an Auburn graduate, gives me hope for a better performance this weekend. One, the bye was at a perfect time. Two, earlier this week, Hugh Freeze said the words that other than we're going to invest millions into the transfer portal to get a quarterback, that every Auburn fan wants to hear, and that's Jarquez Hunter's going to get more touches.
Right.
That dude is a beast. So if he gets 20 touches and Auburn is just even or better in the turnover margin, I like Auburn to win the game outright.
I hear you. Okay. So I'm glad you brought up the injury. So Nate Noel, the transfer from App State, he's questionable this week, and I don't believe he played at UMass. But regardless of that, Luther Burden is probable, and you may have seen that on the ticker Monday on ESPN. I guess he got dinged up at UMass. All right, so this one, I am a slight lean to Missouri. I already filled out my contest picks, which has 25 specified games, ATS. I picked Missouri in my contest, but I'm not betting the game, or at least I'm not betting it pre-game. I would say slight lean to Mizzou. Okay, let's go to South Carolina at Oklahoma, SEC Network, 12:45 p.m. Eastern kick, and I am looking for it to let you know what BetOnline has this game at, and I have found it. And Oklahoma -1.5 with a total, excuse me, of 41 and a half. Some stats on this one. So,
Is Iowa playing? You said total of 41.5. Is Iowa
right?
involved?
Iowa is playing. Iowa actually has been pretty good to the over this year at last look. But anywho, so I said how the 5 best receivers have been out multiple games for Oklahoma. There's optimism Deion Burks will be back. He is questionable on the availability report. And before he went down, he's missed either 2 or 3 games in a row. He was leading them in catches and receiving yards. All right, so Oklahoma under Brent Venables in 3 years as a home favorite, 10-5 ATS. They lead the SEC in takeaways with 14 and turnover margin.
Because of Auburn. That's because of Auburn.
Right. Turnover margin +7. All right, South Carolina road dog under Beamer, 7-5 ATS, 3 outright wins. They've been on the road twice this year, 1-1 straight up, 2-0 against the spread. They cover easily at Bama last week, and they won outright easily at Kentucky. And Kyle Kennard, transfer from Georgia Tech. Well, last week he had 7 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 1 QB hurry at Bama. He now leads the SEC and is 4th in the nation in sacks with 7.5. And he leads the SEC and is 2nd in the country with 11.5 TFLs. All right, what are you thinking on this one?
I think both. My first question, you've got the SEC injury report in front of you. What does it say about Rocket Sanders?
He is not on the injury report.
Then I love South Carolina, both spot and matchup. Spot being Oklahoma just got drubbed by its rival. Drubbed. Taken to the woodshed and beaten like a dog. And that's going to linger, and that mood is going to hang over Norman for multiple weeks, if not months. Shane Beamer not only being desperate, because we talked about where the hot seat meter may fall on a whole lot of these guys, but there was stuff to build on. You get the onside kick, you're going down in Tuscaloosa with a chance in the final minute to win at Tuscaloosa. And I don't care if Saban's been retired for 10 months or 10 years. Winning in Tuscaloosa still matters in this league and will matter. So that momentum is, I love South Carolina's, even having to travel back-to-back weeks. I love the emotion and projection that has from Columbia as they head to Norman. The other thing is, we talked about the injuries to the Oklahoma offensive line. South Carolina's defensive line doesn't have to apologize to anybody. Anybody. So if you're telling me the strongest unit in this game is South Carolina's defensive front and Oklahoma's offensive line still in tatters, I'm sorry, that's all I need to know.
Yeah, excuse me. I picked South Carolina in my contest. I really wish they were getting more than 3, and then it would definitely be a bet for me. But this is just going to be a pass. But it's a lean to South Carolina. Like I said, I picked them in my contest. I think it was 3.5. Was it 3.5 in my contest? What, I forget what this line opened at. It was either 2.5 or 3.5. But anyway, I did take South Carolina, but it's not an official play for me. So Jay likes the Gamecocks. I lean that way, but I don't know that I'll get there. If Oklahoma got out to a lead like Bama did last week, and I could get South Carolina live, at a better number, maybe I'd do that. All right, let's go to the third Saturday in October, Alabama at Tennessee on ABC. That is 3:30 p.m. Eastern, and our friends at BetOnline currently have Alabama listed as a 3-point favorite with minus 115 juice, a total of 56.5, and the Vols are plus 135 on the money line. And for first half wagers, Alabama is minus 1.5 with a total of 27.5. And I'll let Jay go first on this one.
This one probably I could see you and me being on opposite sides of this. I really like Tennessee, and I would probably take them on the money line in this because Josh Heupel against that secondary is a really schematic advantage before we walk even into this game. And Tennessee's defensive strength is their front seven, especially a defensive line that goes 7, 8, 9, 10 deep. And if they can keep Milroe in the pocket, he's been vulnerable there the last couple 3 weeks. I mean, and I think they're going to be athletic enough to do that. I like Tennessee. I like them plus the points, and I'm starting to talk myself into them on the money line, to be honest.
You are correct. We are on opposite sides here. I like Alabama. They've struggled defensively, but Tennessee's struggling offensively, and I feel great about Alabama's offense that ranked third in the SEC, averaging 41.7 points per game. And just because they only had 27 against South Carolina, like Jay's just said a few minutes ago, South Carolina's front seven, particularly their front four, has doesn't need to apologize to anybody. Kyle Kennard, is he's been making himself a lot of money the last 6 weeks, and I don't knock Alabama for not being able to protect from Kennard last week. I think Jalen Milroe will make more plays than Nico, and I think that Alabama covers the 3. So roll tide for me on that one. All right, let's go to Texas A&M at Mississippi State. And about time we started maybe giving a little credit to the improving Bulldogs and some spread covering that they have been doing in recent weeks. And they've got A&M coming to town, 4:15 p.m. Eastern kickoff, and BetOnline has Texas A&M. Oh, wow, the line has gone up. Interesting. I feel like it was 15.5, 16 yesterday and this morning, but BetOnline has A&M minus 17 with a minus 115 price on it. And I will mention that I see a couple other books at 17.5. So this one's on the move, total of 55.5. And Mississippi State on the money line is plus 550. And A&M in the first half is minus 9.5 with minus 115 juice with a total of 28.5. And I'll give the floor to Jay on this one.
My keen analysis on this one is of all the teams who feel better about their situation than maybe at the beginning of the year. I think Texas A&M and Mississippi State, if you ask their fan base to grade their coaching staff and their performance compared to maybe where they thought, I think they would get very high marks compared to a lot of the other teams in the SEC. We all know that the straight A's are coming from Vandy and the way the Commodores feel about Clark Lee and the product they've seen through the first 6 or 7 games. But the confidence meter, the motivated meter, the optimism meter, whatever you want to call it, if you start polling people in South Carolina, in Auburn, in Lexington, in Gainesville, in Columbia, Missouri, I mean, there are a lot of places that in Oxford these days, there are a lot of people who are already disappointed about where they are and where they're headed. But I don't think the folks in Starkville or College Station fit into that conversation. That said, it's 17 and a half, and this game may get to 20. So if you like A&M, you need to pull the trigger now, because it really smells like there's a whole lot of smart money trying to get this game as close to 17 or under as they can. But I'm out here. Starkville can be a tricky place.
Yeah. I'm interested in the line continuing to go up, and perhaps I would get interested in Mississippi State. And
what's your threshold there, then, Brian? If we're recording this Thursday at 3:30,
man, if it got to 21, I would definitely, but it's probably not going all the way that high. Man, I would get a nibble at 19 ish. Maybe it would not be a significant bet, but I want to point out how the true freshman quarterback Michael Van Buren, he has thrown 3 touchdown passes compared to only 1 pick now in 2 starts, and he also has a rushing touchdown. The 2 starts at Texas and at Georgia. 2 top 5 teams, or is Georgia in the top 5? They're in my top 5.
Yeah, they're 5th.
Okay. Yeah. Top 5 teams on the road. Not an easy place for a true freshman quarterback to make his first 2 career starts. And he's got a 3-to-1 TDI and T ratio and 1 rushing touchdown. So not bad. And he took a shove from Kirby Smart that was completely unintentional, by the way, in case anybody was wondering. So yeah, I would maybe consider Mississippi State if the line keeps going up. Right now, it is a pass. So let's go LSU at Arkansas. Very interesting game here. One we talked about in the season win total pods for LSU and Arkansas over the summer, and we talked about how it would be a brutal spot for LSU, especially if they ended up winning the Ole Miss game that they were gunning for with 2 weeks to prepare when Ole Miss was playing 7 times in 7 weeks. But now we got Arkansas with 2 weeks to prepare. And the good news for the Razorback is Taylon Green was not on the injury report. He's got a bone bruise in one of his feet, ankle, what have you. I do a lot of radio with Wes Moore, a TV radio guy in Little Rock. He told me he practiced 3 times last week. And I mean, I'm no doctor, and I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night either. But I would think a bone bruise, if he's having any issues, and he's not on the injury report, so I'm assuming he had a great day of practice. But I would assume that'd be something they could shoot up, and where he could be pain free. So BetOnline currently is LSU -2 with a total of 56.5. So I grabbed a little bit of Arkansas +3 early in the week, but it was only a little bit. I wish I had grabbed more. But I like Arkansas in this game. I think it's a letdown scenario for LSU. And again, like we talked about over the summer, these teams always play tight games. In fact, or actually, I'll give you their head-to-head results in recent years after I let Jay give his opinion on this contest.
I'm with you on the side. I don't think, but man, oh man, there are games in the league and across the country I like more than this, just because this is one of those really strange games that if across the ticker it was 17-0, if you're at the ballpark, and my daughter's got a softball tournament on Saturday in Southeast Tennessee, and somebody goes, "Yeah, did you see the score of the Arkansas LSU game at halftime?" It's 28-3. And they didn't say who was leading. I could see a way that it would be either one. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't. It. This is like the dominoes falling on the way this game plays out. But I will say this: I agree with you on if you get 3 points either way in this game over the last 5 years, I think you're 5-0, or at best or if you get more than 3 points. I'm sorry. You if you get more than 3 points either way in this game the last 5 years, I think you're 5-0. So this game's going to be just, or at least the last 5 years in Arkansas, or last 5 times in Arkansas. LSU's defense is still unbelievably spotty, though. I mean, it's a situation that I think Pittman understands the stakes of this at home. And man, is there anybody you would rather face less with 2 weeks to prepare for a defense that has been taking on water now for 2 years than Bobby Petrino?
Yep. All right. Last 4 results, not 5.
Okay.
LSU won 34-31 last year as an 18-point favorite. So Arkansas easy cover. Okay, the 2 years ago in 2022, that was the game that KJ Jefferson was a late scratch, and it was like 10 degrees in Fayetteville, and LSU won 13-10 because Harold Perkins had like 4 sacks and 3 forced fumbles. If KJ plays that game, Arkansas wins. And that was a year LSU was scoring 35 points a game, and they got held to 13. 2021 in Baton Rouge, Arkansas wins 16-13 in overtime. Arkansas was actually a 3-point favorite in that game. And then in 2020, that was when Orgeron had been pink slipped and was just the interim the rest of the way. In 2020, at Arkansas, LSU wins 27-24 as 1-point favorite. So their last 4 games have been decided by exactly 3 points. So I'm on Arkansas. I am getting 3 for a little bit, but it's too late to get more. So that's my pick. I'm not involved in the total on that one. All right, let's take a quick time out. Are you an experienced entrepreneur looking to diversify, or are you an employee that's simply tired of answering to the man? If so, let me tell you about our guy, Andy Ludecke, and his business, MyPerfectFranchise.net. Like you, Andy had it with corporate America. He was married with 1 kid and another on the way. He wanted to start his own business, and he did just that. Now he's got multiple business, and he's thriving, and he wants to help you out. He's good people. You can do the same thing as him. Here's how it works. You go to Andy's website, myperfectfranchise.net. You set up an intro call, a 1-hour consultation, and here's the best part about it. It's 100% free. Tell Andy about your passion, your goal, your skills, your goals, and the time and money you have to invest in this endeavor. And then Andy will figure out what sort of business fits your DNA. He'll register you with potential franchises. He'll find the best franchise that suits the vision and corporate culture you want. And before you know it, you'll be on your way, and Andy will have you making greenbacks galore. So what are you waiting for? Reach out to my guy, Andy Ludecke at myperfectfranchise.net, or you can call him at 404-973-9901. And this show is brought to you by BetOnline and myperfectfranchise.net. Okay, let's talk Ball State at Vandy. Vandy 4-2 straight up, 5-1 ATS. And BetOnline has Vandy at -25 at half juice, -105 price, 57.5 is the total. Ball State 1,200 or 12-1 on the money line, and the first half line for the Commodores is -14.5 with a total of 30.5. ESPN Plus or SEC Network Plus at 7 p.m. Eastern in Nashville. Look ahead spot for Vandy. I got nothing here. I can't lay that many, and I just
I mean, I think Vandy certainly deserves a little bit of our time when
Sure. Oh yeah.
mentioned them. You mentioned them as you're good this week, and what Diego Pavia. I mean, honestly, I know he may not be SEC Player of the Year, but if it was done the way professional organizations did their player awards and called it the most valuable player, there's no
Right.
doubt in my mind who the
Oh
most
yeah.
valuable player in the SEC is, and it's Diego Pavia. But we mentioned briefly that Vandy should have beaten Missouri if the kicker makes a kick at the end of regulation. And then their other loss is an inexplicable gaffe in Atlanta to Georgia State.
Their two
I mean,
losses are by 7 combined points. They could be undefeated
they
going
could
to
be
top,
undefeated. Absolutely.
going to
And
top ranked
that said,
Texas
I
next week.
want no part of this game against Ball State, none,
No, I don't.
because this that game could be 7-6 going into the fourth.
Well, if I'm Clark Lee and we get a sizable lead, I'm damn sure getting Diego out of there. I want him 1,000,000% healthy for the Texas Longhorns, obviously. And so, you know, we're should, I hope, assume they get this win, and then they're one game away from bowl eligibility. Now,
And I can remember saying this exact thing because honestly, you and I both had talked ourselves into going over Vandy's win total at 3.5 because of the schedule. And and they've already pulled off their two toughest games to date, beaten, or at least before we thought the season in their first 6 games. I would have bet anything that Virginia Tech was going to clobber them and Alabama was going to beat them by 1,000. So, but I do remember saying this exact sentence. If Vandy becomes bowl eligible, Clark Lee should be SEC Coach of the Year.
yeah, and I made that exact sentence about Heupel when he got there in his first year. If they get to a bowl, he should be coach of the year because the whole team had bailed. Toto had gone to Bama, and the couple guys, Eric Gray, the running back, went to Oklahoma, Wanda Morris. Okay, I don't know why I spaced. I had not looked at the DraftKings look ahead lines for next week yet, and I spy the line for Texas at Vandy. You want to give it a guess?
25.5.
20 and one half. And we've got a Missouri at Bama as well, which I will say is DraftKings is a little different than what FanDuel had yesterday. FanDuel had Alabama 13.5 to Mizzou. You want to guess what DraftKings has?
Missouri at Alabama,
And
16.5.
it's 12. And I'll remind folks it was 8.5 all summer. And then we got Oklahoma at Ole Miss next week. Want to try that
Ole
one?
Miss minus 12.
14.
I will say this.
Yeah.
If you like either of the underdogs in those look ahead lines, be it Vandy, I'm sorry, if you like the favorites, be it Vandy or Alabama, bet it now. Because if Texas beats Georgia, that 20 becomes 25.
Could be.
If
Yep.
Alabama wins in Knoxville, I don't think it's going to dip that much more if either of those teams lose, per
Right.
se, against quality competition. But if they win against quality competition, especially Bama on the road, what'd you say? Alabama was given 12 to Missouri.
Yep.
That goes north of 14 in a big hurry.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. If Auburn wins and Alabama wins, yeah, I agree. Okay, LSU at A&M.
Aggies 7.5.
3.5. I saw it 2.5 at FanDuel yesterday, and I wrote a article about it yesterday with all the look headlines, and I said I would love A&M at minus 2.5.
Yeah, I would too. I would too.
Yeah. Are there any other SECs? Not one for Auburn, Kentucky. No, I think that is it for SEC. But there you go. We got some look ahead lines. All right. Now, before we get to the main event, Georgia at Texas, we got one more. It's called Kentucky at Florida SEC Network, 7:45 p.m. Eastern. Got some injury notes here. Kentucky cornerback Maxwell Hairston, who was second-team All-SEC last year when he led the league in interceptions with 5. He's going to miss a third straight game with an injury. Obviously, Graham Mertz gone for the season. DJ Lagway starting, but Montrell Johnson is a very big deal whether he's going to play or not, because Florida's running game absolutely disappeared when he went out with that hip drop tackle. Were you watching that game? Didn't you think that was a hip drop tackle? Is that not a rule in
Yes.
college like it is in the NFL?
I don't think that rule has
Okay.
translated down the NFL to
Oh,
the college yet.
okay. Well, because I was wanting a damn penalty, and it looked like a textbook hip drop tackle. Well, anyway, I was just thrilled Montrell went out for the year. I kind of thought he was out for the year, but it's a big deal because Katie Daniels, one of the backups at running back, is out, and Treon Webb is questionable, and he's missed the last 2 games. And so the other guys that were running back the rest of the way last week just basically got nothing going on the ground. I made Florida 1.5, so I guess I technically lean Florida, but I don't want anything to do with this game. I have nothing on this game whatsoever.
Well, I'm going to bring in a guest picker, my daughter, Ray Greeson, and her
Okay,
analysis. Lean in here.
get in
And
here.
hey, tell Brian, who went to Florida, what do you think?
I love the Gators.
All right, let's go.
I think this Kentucky team's getting away from Stoops. I don't understand how South Carolina and Vandy come in there and in a lot of ways are the more physical bunch. I know Kentucky they look great against Georgia, but
And
I don't
Ole
know.
Miss.
Maybe they don't know their place in the hierarchy. And I patted myself. I got a little tennis elbow patting myself on the back for the Clark Lee prediction in the preseason. But I'll also say this: I don't know if I could have missed more on Brock Vandagriff. I thought that guy was going to be a guy.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you're Kentucky and he doesn't deliver this week, you're probably looking around. I think this is a Gators or pass for me, but there are a lot of games I like better, even though my daughter apparently wants to go to Gainesville where you did.
Oh, I like that. Go, girl. Go, Ray. All right, that's awesome. Is she able to get in? It is hard to get in there.
Dude.
She's a Greeson. She
Come
got
on.
5.0 GPA. Let's go.
5.0 on a 2.0 scale.
All right. All right, to the main event in Austin, Texas, Georgia at Texas, and it's 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ABC. And I can't believe I haven't looked up what Georgia is as an underdog under Kirby, because it certainly
I can tell you what they are as a regular season underdog since the start of 2021.
0-0.
1-0. They were underdog to start the year that year against Clemson and beat the brakes off of them.
10-3.
There you go.
The pick six. I remember that game. Yes. All right. Well, you give your analysis while I look up what they are as a road dog under Kirby.
Okay.
I've already done it. 1-2. Oh wait. Oh, they went off favored at Alabama. Yeah. So they're 1-2 ATS as a road dog. As a home dog, 2-0. So 3-2 and then we'd have to figure out all the games in Atlanta. Which my magazine only goes back to 2019, but they haven't been underdogs much lately. Oh, I didn't give the line. Hold on, let me give the line, and then the floor is yours. Okay, so BetOnline right now has Texas -5, -113 price, total 56.5, and I'm sure some Georgia fans want to know about the money line, and it looks like BetOnline has the most lucrative payout on the money line, +186. So there you go.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but and you follow this on more of a day-to-day basis than I do. That number's grown several points in the last 72 hours, correct? I mean, I think it was under a field goal starting Monday. And
it went from 3.5 to 5.5 around 12:45 p.m. yesterday. Yeah.
So I don't know if that's an influx of big time Texas money. I don't know if that's some inside skinny somebody thinks they may or may not know. But I love this spot for Kirby Smart and company. And you and I probably are going to disagree again on a big SEC game. But the only way I play this is Georgia, and I actually like Georgia, and I'm glad you mentioned the money line. I think this is a classic rat poison place for Texas and Sarkisian. I think I don't know if he and Kirby are as buddy as they're trying to let on this week. And I mean, I think this is Kirby has recruited at a higher level longer than Texas has. And I think this is an ideal spot for a Georgia team that is going to be more desperate. Georgia is staring at a real position that this could be its last mulligan. Texas has a whiff in its bag and a get out of jail free card. So that type of desperation cannot be emulated or replicated. So I'm on Georgia here. I'm on Georgia with the number, and I'm on Georgia on the money line.
And I'm not gonna scold that thought process in any way whatsoever. I totally get that. Especially with the line ballooning up to 5, and even could have had 5.5 there for a little while yesterday. But I made the number 4.5 when it was 3.5 early in the week. I just kind of like I did with Arkansas. I made a little small play on Texas buying the half point to 3. I was only playing it small because I was hoping to get a clean 3 later in the week without having to do the minus 130 juice deal. To me, Georgia has not been impressive at all year, except for their defense against Clemson the whole game and their offense in the second half against Clemson, and their
Bama.
offense the second half against Bama. Other than that, I think they've been trying to tell us who they are, and I'm almost believing them. And if they don't have a good performance at Texas, then I will believe what they're telling us. And what they've told us so far is they're not nearly on the level of the teams they've had the last 3 or 4 years. Now, and maybe they can click the switch. I mean, the talent is there to click the switch, and maybe that happens this week. And I totally understand Jay's thought process that Texas has a mulligan. Georgia's thinking maybe we don't have a mulligan, especially now that the game at Ole Miss is not going to be at undefeated and top 5 Ole Miss, and the home game to Tennessee isn't looking that great, as big a win as it might have otherwise been earlier in the year either. So I think Georgia probably does have the mindset of we don't have any more mulligans, but whether that is the case or not only remains to be seen. But you don't want to have to be rooting for other teams to play spoiler for you to be able to get in. And also if Haynes King isn't able to play and he's a game time decision against Notre Dame, then Notre Dame's going to beat Georgia Tech, and the Georgia Tech game won't be as quality a win as Georgia was thinking a week or two back. So, anywho, I get your thought process, but I just think Texas is better, and they're at home. But I'm not laying 5 now. Let me be clear. I just feel decent about my -3 position at bad juice for a small amount. At -5, it's a pass for me, or I don't mean to talk out of two sides of my mouth. It's maybe even a slight lean to Georgia at 5, but obviously I'm not going to do that. So there's where I'm at on that one. All right, let's get to some non.
Well, hey, before we,
Sure.
let's do a little Q&A, a little SEC Q&A that's not directly game related.
Okay.
Grade the Oxford fan base mood right now with Lane Kiffin having flirted with Auburn last year, his name being atop the Florida wish list. They have 2 losses. They in what will almost assuredly be the most talented team they have had there, not only in multiple decades, but maybe in decades to come. How upset is Hottie Toddy?
Well, I'm gonna say C plus, but it can't be worse than that because you can still win out. And if they win out, they're gonna have a good chance to be in the playoff. I mean, it's not for sure. It's definitely not for sure. You would, if you're Ole Miss, you want Georgia to beat Texas. You want Oklahoma to beat South Carolina, and you want Arkansas to beat LSU. These next three games, you want to get as much credit for those games as you can. And you've got Oklahoma at home, at Arkansas, and Georgia. You know, it's going to look if Tennessee and LSU both lose at Arkansas, and you go win there, and Ole Miss has not been very good in Fayetteville for a long time, and then you beat Georgia and you're rooting for Florida too because you got a Florida game later. Um, yeah, so I'd
And
say C plus. Are you thinking way worse than that?
no, but that's to your point of that's what made me think of when you said you don't want to be sitting around rooting for other teams
Right.
to pull rabbits out of their hat so you can say, well, if this happens and that happens, and Ole Miss is already there, and
Yeah.
we're barely to Columbus Day. And
Yeah.
I mean, this weekend, there are going to be two teams that fully expected to be in the playoffs 2 weeks ago. Well, potentially two, but at least one of the trio of Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia who are now looking around going, crap, we got a hell of a lot of work to do, and we may still need some help.
Missouri better not lose either. Or you just expect them to
with
lose?
LSU and Texas A&M, I mean, sitting there with pretty decent wins and without a conference loss yet, I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting thing. So what were you going to ask me? Games outside the conference? I'm going to start. I got to start. If you've been paying attention to our pod, I've been on Army from the very early on. I love the make of their offense, which has incorporated a little more pass. They lead the nation in rushing by more than 60 yards a game over Navy, who is second. This is a team that I love their old school embrace of the metrics. This is a little bit of a step up in class, considering their schedule to start the year has not been the best, but it's not like East Carolina's a world beater. You can find that game right around 14. I don't know if it's gone up since I looked at it this morning. May have. It may be around 15. But Army is my strongest play. And then also looking around, I love this spot for Iowa State. There's no easy way to get to Ames. It's going to be cold. Gus Malzahn's picking between quarterback number 2 and number 3. UCF's on a 3-game losing streak. A whole lot of those kids may phone it in and definitely don't want to be in the frigid temperatures of Ames, Iowa, against a defense that will hit you and ranks top 15 in America.
All right. I'm on a lot of chalk in college. What could go wrong, right? So my favorite play of the day was Cincinnati, which I got at 2.5 early in the week. But then Sam Levitt was ruled out. Jeff Sims, formerly at Georgia Tech and Nebraska, he's going to start for ASU. And so the line ballooned up to 5.5. I think it even got to 6.5, but it's back down to into that 5-ish range. So I don't really want to recommend it. Again, I'm in at 2.5 personally, and on Vegas Insider. But what I will still recommend, now that the line for the game is at 5, I'll recommend Cincy -3 in the first half, and their team total either over 13.5 in the first half or over 27.5 for the game. I think those are all winners. But I'll mention in the Bearcats' 3 home games in the first half, they've scored 17, 24, and 28. And in Arizona State's 2 road games this year in the first half, they've given up 21 and 17. So there's a couple of plays for the Cincy Bearcats. Army, and I heard this on the radio, and I haven't been able to fact check it. I forget who said it, but I'm going to assume it was true. Along with Army, there's one other team in the country that has not trailed all year long, and that would be Indiana. And they've ripped off 5 straight spread covers. Do I like them as much as I've liked them in recent weeks? No, because they're -6.5 at home to a pretty good Nebraska team, which is probably the best team they've played so far. But the Hoosiers are just rolling. They're covering for me. Curtis Rourke, 14-2 TDI&T ratio, 2 rushing touchdowns. I'm going to go with IU minus the 6.5. I'm also going to go with another Big 12 favorite being Texas Tech. I made them 9 at home to Baylor. They're 6.5. They have ripped off 4 straight wins, going 3-0-1 against the spread. Their QB Morton, 14-2 TDI&T ratio. Taj Brooks, one of the best running backs in the country, and Baylor has already, they've lost 3 games in a row, but straight up and ATS, and they've already been on the road 3 times this year, and they have gone 0-3 straight up, 1-2 ATS, and Baylor's only outright wins this year over FCS foe Tarleton State and over the worst Troy Calhoun team at Air Force that we've seen in at least a decade or more. And then in the NFL, I like the Detroit Lions +2 at Minnesota. I would take the Lions as underdogs in a road game to every team in the NFL except for at Baltimore and at Kansas City. I know Minnesota's had 2 weeks, but I think the urgency is there for the Lions because if they lose this game, they are literally 2 games back in the division, and really more than that because Minnesota will momentarily have a head-to-head tiebreaker advantage. And then I'm on the Commanders. I got them -7. They're now -8. I think are okay. Panthers have lost their 5 games this year by margins of 18, 26, 10, 23, and 37. I'm also on the Commanders team total over 30.5, and I lean Falcons -3, but don't tell me because when I bet my Falcons, they never cover. What else you got, Jay?
I've got nothing but butterflies and excitement for the wonderful New England Jacksonville game Sunday morning that I'm going to skip church for because who in a million years could miss that one? There are a lot of good versus awful matchups, but I'll tell you one I'm leaning towards. I'm going to take the points with the Houston Texans, who I think are just about as good as anybody. And I'm not so certain that C.J. Stroud's not a top 5 quarterback in the league.
Nor should you be.
I mean, that team, and I mean, I don't know. This is a whole conversation for a whole nother day. But you've got an unbelievably great chance to build a winner, and the Texans are doing it that way. Think of the pieces they're putting around C.J. Stroud on that rookie contract to where they go get a Joe Mixon. They go overspend for Stephon Diggs. All of those guys have now put together a team that I just think they're really, really good. And I'm with you on the Falcons, but you and I have the same rooting interest and the same what feels like awful luck every time I pick the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been picking them much the last couple of years, but when I do, it's normally not good.
Grown men
but anyway,
fighting in diapers this week?
Man, there are, but I got my eye on the pay-per-view card next week. I'll have plenty of UFC grown man with diapers picks on next week's card, which is a monster over in Abu Dhabi. All right, tell them about Jay's plays and the 5 at 10, and we're gonna scoot out of here.
Jay's plays back north of 80 plus units over it's been 2 years this week. So had a good run in postseason baseball, and you can read the 5 at 10 every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. at Times Free Press. And from St. Simon's Island and from next week from Signal Mountain, Tennessee, we appreciate your business and we love our sponsors. If you like what you hear, subscribe, tell your friends, and be sure to patronize our sponsors because they make the magic happen.
That is true. This has been Bets and Ball Games brought to you by Southeastern 16 and BetOnline and MyPerfectFranchise.net. Good luck with your bets. Stay safe out there, and we will talk to you next week. We're over and out.